Okay, so every once in a while I'm flipping through the MLS and I get fired up about something, and it's at least once a week that I see something a real estate agent has done that'll cost their client thousands of dollars. And the problem is that a lot of the clients don't know that costs them thousands of dollars. So in this video, I want to teach you, just like I always have, about how a real estate agent and the things they can do can cost you thousands of dollars. I'm here to educate and to put a little insight into how this may affect you, things you can do to mitigate that risk. And as a real estate agent, I see it. I know how it's done. I know how real estate agents do it. I've been through lots of real estate transactions, and we're going to talk about the ones that off the top of my head that will really affect you in a transaction. So let's get into it. Those that don't know me, I am Jack. I have this channel here of Yak Motley, everything from real estate to adventures to food to fishing to hunting, whatever I decide to talk about on that day. And since I'm a real estate agent here on the Gulf Coast, I see just about everything. And starting from the top, we're going to go through a handful of these things that I've seen just in the last 2 weeks. And the first one, let's talk about real estate agent compensation and how it works, okay? This is a very touchy subject. Those that even talk about it get deemed and vilified by the real estate agent community, and there was even a huge lawsuit about it recently. Well, here is something you need to know as a seller. When you sign a listing agreement with a real estate agent, depending on the states, different in some states, it will explain out in detail how the compensation will work. They will say, hey, I'm going to take 6%. I'm going to wind up giving the buyer's agent 3%, 2.5%, whatever it may be. And you as the seller need to know what is going on with the money that you are spending for the real estate agents. These are the ones that are going to handle and manage the transaction. So there was a big lawsuit about this, about compensation and price fixing, where some brokers were going across the board and saying we were only allowing this much to be charged. So yes, real estate agents can vary in how much they're going to charge. Some charge 1%, some charge 2%, some charge 4%, some charge 6%. It's up to each individual agent or the broker thereof to decide what their break-even cost is, what they're willing to work for. And some of the agents that are really, really good and really know their worth, they have their number, and rightfully so, and they're worth every penny. So here's how it will work, and this can affect you. And as a buyer, you need to know what your agent's making too, to make sure they're adequately compensated or they are giving you the proper service. So let's say that you sign a listing agreement for 6%, and that real estate agent says, hey, I'm going to have to pay the other agent, blah, 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 blah. Ask them how much, because here's the way this is going to play out. Some of these agents will say, okay, they'll keep 4% as the listing agent, and they'll put 2% on the MLS. And then they'll say, okay, we're on the MLS, and we're going to wait for a buyer's agent to come and bring us a buyer. Well, in different areas, people don't like to use the word standard. I would say fair. Because a buyer's agent has to resource the client, spend the time to go out there and look through 10, 15 houses. They have to pay taxes, they have to pay marketing, they have to pay their broker, they have to pay for their office, they have to pay for their product, they have to pay for their time, they have to be away from their families. They have to be able to make a worthy wage or a worthy amount for their time. And let me add to that the delta of risk of the deal. So anytime you engage in a real estate deal, a transaction, there is the risk of litigation, there's risk of your license, there's risk of the brokerage, there's risk of your character, there's risk of your integrity. There is a risk involved in every deal, especially deals when there's a lot of problems with the property, or there is a veil of secrecy or grayness, or some part of the seller or seller's agent is combative, problematic. You know that you're going to be in a relationship with that other side for 30, 60, I've seen deals go 90 days or more, and you get hung up. You might have to go to mediation. There might be litigation. There might be all kinds of things, especially properties that are large estates, large tracts of land that a builder is trying to get. You get tangled up with some of these large builders. Everything you write, say, do can be held against you one day. And it can be dangerous. And good agents know the risk factor of every deal. So when you, let's say the standard in an area is 2.5%. Let's call it fair because people like to nitpick this stuff. The fair amount that all the agents usually always offer the buyer's agent is 2.5%. Well, when you go under that, let's say 1.75 or 1%, they don't even make any money on that deal most likely. And that's just the color of the business. There's just so many expenses by the time you pay your MLS fees and all these things that are included. So the agents are like, I just don't want to do that deal. This is the meat and potatoes of what I'm saying right here. Not about commission, standards, fixing, anything like that. I'm trying to make sure you understand that agents can pull these things where they keep the majority of the commission and offer very little for the other side. And the problem is it affects you. You got to be cognitive of this. That the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that will be a red flag for the other side, knowing in their head they're doing the backward math that this agent probably got 5% on one side, they're giving me 1%. And when they get the Alta at the end of the deal, the HUD, they're going to see the cost of breakdown, they're going to see the agent commissions, and they're going to know that your agent kept 5% and they got 1%, and it's going to have a foul taste across the board. And they might have done it in the past, because I know the agents in my area that does this, that they don't want to work with that agent anymore. Because usually the agent is the one, the brokerage is the one that kind of sets that tone. Then the other brokerage, the opposing brokerage, gets mad at that brokerage, and they have these little turf wars. My point is, I want you to be cognitive of these turf wars, where these agents work, and you know how to call it out when you see it. Not a matter of my opinion on this. This has nothing to do with my opinion. This is me teaching you this is what they do. Agents got very mad at me for saying this the other day because I was trying to tell people this, that agents do this and nobody calls them out on it. All you'll see is maybe the other agent after the deal might smirk and say something. And that's what is going on. And these agents will do it over and over and over, and eventually it affects the client. And, some people say, well, where's the fiduciary duty in that? Well, where the person has to be able to make money. This isn't slavery, okay? And that's when the buyer, and that's why I say buyers need to know this too. That's when the buyer's like, well, I know they're not offering any commission, but I need your help in this. I will do a buyer's commission. I will pay for it. And in some states, that's the way they're going. They're making the buyer pay for it now. And, there was big litigation about it. But you need to be cognitive. My point of this is to educate you to be cognitive of what your agent is offering the other side. So whether it's 2%, 2.5%, 1.5%. I've seen agents keep 5% and then offer 1% on the MLS, and the property sits there for 60 days, 70 days. And they're like, well, we're going to have to lower the price because I can't get a buyer. It's just overpriced. No, your compensation is not helping the matter. 1% listers, that's another one. 1% listers. Everybody thinks that you can just put a property out there, list it with a 1% lister. That 1% lister is not going to answer the phone, not going to do the contract, not going to manage it, not going to bring a team to the deal, not going to help you with your home inspections and finding a home inspector and a WDO inspector and a surveyor and all the things it takes to get a property to the finish line. That 1% lister is not going to do that. But that 1% lister is the same one that'll sit there and cry about agents wanting a fair amount of compensation, or call it price fixing. When I made a post about this, real estate agents lost their mind on my pages because a lot of them are guilty of this. And I want you to know how these deals work. And you can spot that and say, hey, agent, you're not going to do that. You're going to keep 3 and you're going to give 3, or you're going to keep 2.5 and you're going to give 2.5. Okay, I think that's fair. But listen to the agent and see what they have to say. But be cognitive that this exists. I call it, it's all right up there with overlist, undeliver, until you beat them down over 6 months and then you wind up getting a lower price, but you got the listing up here and you knew you couldn't get that price. That's another one. Okay, number 2, because we're walking into the deal here, failing to write a coherent MLS listing and how it may look on the other platforms such as Realtor.com, Zillow, blah, blah, blah. Because Zillow, Realtor.com, they'll pull from the MLS. Well, I saw 3 listings this week that I showed that had one sentence in the description of the property. It just said, being sold as is. And in the agent's notes, which the agents can see on the MLS, that just kind of helps us with some of the documents and kind of showing instructions and if there's a defect in the property. It was just vacant lockbox number. And to add a little bit to it, you see a thumb in one of the pictures, or they're crooked or blurry or whatever. As a real estate agent, that is just poor form, okay? And those things will cost you money. Here's how. A good real estate agent or an investor sees it and knows that nobody else is going to go look at that property, because people on Zillow will be like, well, if they won't take their time to do good pictures, what's the rest of the property look like? Or, oh, I have to negotiate with that real estate agent that would put that up. What do they think of the deal? And usually when you call those agents that do that, it's, yeah, no, show it if you want. I don't care. I'm not gonna tell you anymore. I'm not gonna waste my time. What, you can't find the property? It's always a bad situation. So be cognizant of, if your real estate agent puts that up on the MLS, fire them. Just like relief for cause right there on the spot. Make sure everything looks inviting on the listing. And as an investor, I target those properties because I know that nobody else is going to go look at those properties, and it's going to sit there for 65 days, or it has been sitting there 65 days because of this, and then I'm going to roll in and get the property under where it should have sold. That's just the realism of this. And the entire point of this video is not to tell you the thoughtful things that these salespeople will tell you. I'm going to tell you I'm telling you the realism of these deals and how this stuff really goes down. And some people are going to not like me for it, but if you're a real estate agent, you're an investor, or you're a first-time home buyer, or seller, know these things, that these do happen. Ability to know the parts of a property, the basic functions of a house, the necessities of a house, what type of plumbing you have, septic, sewer, roof, age of roof, all these things. Look, when you go to buy a house or you go to sell a house and there is a home inspection and it gets sent from the home inspector to the real estate agent, the buyer, or the real estate agent and the seller from the other side, you're going to have to go through this home inspection and the repairs that are being requested or being stated and understand what you're looking at, okay? I don't know how many times another agent will call me, and this is how this usually goes. Hey, I'm wondering if, you know that thingy on the back left side of the house? I don't really know what it's called. We were wondering if the home inspector said that it's against code. And then a good agent's going to be like, what thingy? What code? Can you elaborate? And then they'll go, well, there was no permit for it. And a good agent would be like, well, was it done longer than 10 years ago? You won't find a permit, so you can't tell me it wasn't unpermitted. Or that they'll be like, well, that wire in the box, what wire? What size wire? Which one are we talking about? What kind of breaker? What kind of breaker is it going to? Is it going to the AC unit? Is it going to the electrical box? Is it going to an outside stove? Is it going to a heater? What are we talking about here? And then they start getting tripped up in how to talk about the repair, how to get the permit, how to get the right contractor to get out there and look at it, whether we're talking about electrical or HVAC, because HVAC won't touch any type of electrical. And if it's a plumber and then there's some part of the bathroom that needs electrical, well, the plumber's not going to touch it. He's going to need the electrician to go first. And you only have a window of a small amount of time to get some of these repairs done. And it just goes on and on and on. Or a home inspector flags a stove range service wire and they're saying it's single strand versus multi-strand aluminum, and that they're saying it needs to be replaced. And then the electrician is like, no, multi-strand aluminum is how we put these in, just like the service wire coming from the street. And then the home inspector doesn't know what they're talking about, and then the other real estate agent doesn't know what they're talking about, and they're trying to advise the client. Meanwhile, you know what you're talking about. You got a letterhead from a master electrician, and you just saved your client $15,000. This is where these things really play into effect. And they'll always say, well, you're not allowed to talk about that because you're not a home inspector. Yeah, but you can always get a letterhead from a licensed electrician, plumber, roofer, blah, 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 and let them speak for you, okay? And this stuff's not rocket science. You can buy a code book. You can buy all these things. You can even go and take the test in some of these counties and have the county sponsor you and become a licensed residential electrician or whatever you want to do, okay? You got to know these things. And make sure your real estate agent can competently talk about this stuff. All right, so I'm going to clump the next two together, and just knowing how to write a contract. Look, there's nothing worse than somebody to send me a contract riddled full of errors. The legal description's wrong. The names are wrong. I had one sent to me last year. They had their client's name on the contract twice in the same line. They only had half the description or legal description. They didn't have a property ID. They goofed up the numbers on the price. They goofed up basically every addendum. And the excuse was, sorry, I was downtown out tonight, and I was just trying to get it to you. And it wound up me, like a school teacher, going through it with red, trying to fix the contract and shove it back to the other side. There's nothing worse when the other real estate agent loses respect for your real estate agent because they can't coherently type or finish a sentence, or you're like, I'm going to be dealing with this other agent for the next 30 days, okay? This would also be the same person that's responsible for making sure the timeline is followed to the T because your earnest money is at risk. Look, let's say you're buying a $2 million property, your earnest money is $50,000, and you miss the inspection deadline or the right to inspect cancel deadline. You want to bounce out, but you're over the date. You didn't know it. Your agent didn't follow the timeline or have a transaction coordinator that could. And now you want to terminate, you lose your earnest money. Boom, 50 grand gone, just like that. That agent cost you $50,000. And in a lot of instances, sometimes agents get sued for that $50,000. Errors and omissions insurance or whatever needs to kick in. This is all risk, and this is how a bad agent that doesn't know what they're doing can get you in a lot of problems. So anytime there is a back and forth problem, you will have this situation where it's costing you money because the point is not getting across to the other side. There could be a very simple point. Like, hey, we were wondering if you could pull those weeds before closing. And then when it gets to the other side, they're like, hey, they want them to mow the whole lawn before they get to closing. No, we just wanted that little shrub to be fixed because they don't have a set of clippers. They're moving from out of town. Small things, that can snowball into, hey, there's a leaky faucet on the front side of the house, snowballs into, they want us to replumb the whole house. And that's really the ability to work well with others. Some agents are very combative, and they will kill the deal faster than anything. I was in a deal not too long ago. Every time I called her, she was screaming or drunk or high or whatever, and there was no ability to work with this person. And it was a client from an international client, and there was no way to get a competent point across to this person, and everything was screaming. To the point where I was done with her, my client was done with her, we were done with the slow process of getting anything done. They weren't getting addendums and contracts back to us within a timely manner, to the point where they cost their client the earnest money and everything in between, and getting the sale closed. And on some of these properties, the holding costs on them are astronomical. You think of a property that's millions of dollars. Sometimes the holding cost is $10,000 a month. Okay? Sometimes it's $5,000 a month. Sometimes it's really expensive to maintain, operate, or to have them off the market in Airbnb time during the summer or short-term rental time during the summer. These are things that can cost a lot of money, and the agent can ultimately be held responsible sometimes, as well as the owners. They're all, I've seen some $16-20 million properties where when the agent did not do due diligence on some things, they wound up being responsible for it, for that expense. All right, the next one I want to talk about is the agent being a total ghost on the internet. And I mean this is if you cannot find your agent on the internet, you cannot find a well-written website, social media platform, videos, anything like that. You cannot find the agent. And I don't know how many times I Google agents that I go into deals with and I can't find them. Your property is going to be non-existent as well. Because if they can't market themselves, they cannot market your property. These are things to think about. If they're not outspoken and if they're not the biggest person in the room, their job is to be seen and for your property to be seen. So if you run a quick Google search and you can't find them, move on to the next agent that you can find, because marketing, brand, all these things are expensive to create. Like me, I've grown these big platforms and they were expensive to create. And I can market your property through those networks and through those platforms. And if the other agent does not have that, you're not going to have that access as well. So network is net worth in these deals, and it takes time, money, and effort and to grow these networks. And if your real estate agent does not have a network, it's going to greatly affect you. So think about these things. Let me say two agents that sell one house a year, or one in the last 2 years, or 3 in the last 10 years. You will do yourself a disservice by hiring your aunt, sister, cousin, brother, friend. If they're not the best, don't hire them. This is one of the largest transactions in most people's lives. And don't hire somebody just because they're your friend. If you do one deal every 2 years, you're out of practice. You don't know the addendums that are being used. Sometimes they use the wrong contracts, outdated contracts. Sometimes they don't know, they're not up to date with insurance and 4 points and some of the things of navigating the deal and getting it to the very end. You want expertise in that field right now. Real estate's totally different now than it was before the cough, before the P word, before the explosion in the housing market. DocuSign, digital documents, closing at a distance, like these things, wiring money, all these things have changed a lot in the last couple of years. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this. A real estate agent is a professional, okay? The really good ones, no different than lawyers. They didn't go to school for as long as a lawyer, but the ones that are really good, that have been doing it a while, they are straight up worth every penny. Why? They bring a managing team to the deal. They have transaction coordinators. They have showers. They have a book of people that can solve problems for you at any given time. They are problem solvers when things go bad. Go watch the video I am posting right now about my deal that blew away on Pensacola Beach. And it will show you that when the house you're under contract with gets imploded or blown away or something happens to it, that somebody knows what to do, who to call, how to handle it, what paperwork to do, that has been in the driver's seat of this before. Make sure that person is on your team when you go to that situation. And if you go to hire a real estate agent and they are quick to lower their commission, they question their net worth. They question their worth in a deal. The good agents will say, hey, I've got a lot of deals going on. I work really hard. I'm one of the best that I can think of. I can handle this deal and get you the best price, but you want to carve off 1% on me? You're going to lose 1% on the transaction by going with another agent that will list it lower because they're not going to work as hard as I am. And for me, that is always something that is a big deal, that I value my time a lot. I have to spend time away from my son, my family. I have to pay a lot of people to make sure your deal goes smoothly. And that's something that I am willing to do. And I am good at what I do. And I have the biggest platform on the Gulf Coast. And that was expensive to create. It's not about the money. It's about knowing what I'm worth, and I work hard. And if your agent isn't willing to put up that fight, or isn't able to elaborate to you why they're worth that, you got a confidence issue, and the person that's going to be speaking for you in a transaction to the other side, when that agent is going to be the go-getter, that's going to be the dragon slayer, and that agent is going to be talking to the dragon slayer, and they will get steamrolled. Sorry, that's just the way it is. But on a cheerful note, I hope this video really put it to you plainly on how some of these things can cost you a lot of money. I've probably ran on for way too long, and comment down below if you can think of anything that I have missed. I've done videos on some of the tricks agents will do, like boxing out and overlisting and all these things. Check those videos out. If you're a real estate agent, follow along, and if you're an investor, follow along, and if you just like pizza reviews or restaurants or travel, follow along. And I hope this helped. Sorry if I went a little dark on it, but I keep seeing people lose money on this every week. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Like and subscribe. See you later.